Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks in the audience. Welcome to this great group on the third day of BB Dev Days. I'm Kathryn Hall with Blackbaud. I want to welcome to the stage a trailblazer in the area of tech career development and mentorship. That is Ashima Sharma. She began her career as a reservoir engineer at Chevron before a series of unexpected career pivots brought Ashima to become a tech startup founder in education and workforce development, making her, like many of us in the room, an accidental tech innovator. She would describe herself more as a tech founder, but she founded Dreami to provide hypermobilized career readiness programs for youth and adults to bridge the economic mobility divide. And in just 2 years, Dreami has helped transform the lives of over 12,000 individuals, achieving a staggering 95% program satisfaction rating and attracting support from giants like the National Science Foundation and Google. So Ashima is here to share her insights with us on embracing change, knowing how to pick an idea to run with, how to run with it, and building your unique career in tech. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to a remarkable entrepreneur, a dedicated change maker, and a bit of an adventurer at heart, Ashima Sharma.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. It is truly a pleasure to be here this morning. As mentioned, I'm Ashima, co-founder and CEO of a social impact startup called Dreami. And we're going to get a little bit vulnerable right off the bat here. I want to let you all in on a secret today. We're going to take a look at the Notes app on my iPhone. I actually have a laundry list of ideas that I want to work on. In fact, I've been creating and updating this list since 2014, so 10 years now. And there are about now 55 ideas on my list. And for 54 of them, I've never even tried to execute or act upon them. And I actually have a second secret. I actually believe that these ideas terrify me. I'm actually terrified to even try. Even today, as a tech founder, I feel overwhelmed at even the thought of trying to make my ideas come to life. I'm not quite sure if the idea is even the right idea, and I get caught up in this whirlwind of feeling overwhelmed, confused, stuck of where to even begin. And if I try, and if it doesn't work out, what if I fail, right? Now, maybe some of this rings true to you all as well. So I want to hear from you in the chat. How many of you have a list of ideas that you've been documenting? Maybe that one application that you've wanted to build, maybe that script that will automate your work or your team's work, or maybe that far out there moonshot idea that you will think will move the needle. I'm seeing here, okay, people are saying long list, maybe longer than mine, right? Longer than that 55. But I have a second question. Okay, Post-its, wonderful. Thank you, Sunshine. But I have a second question here, right? What's holding you all back? What's stopping you from bringing these ideas to life? Or how many of you are maybe even struggling to come up with some ideas? It's very common, right? Okay, I'm seeing fear and time. Ourselves. Yes, Mark, that's very wise. Not knowing where to start, try to do too many at a time, workload. These are so common, and I can relate to all of these, right? That's exactly what overwhelms me, is that I'm too busy, I don't know where to start, or I'm scared to try. It is hard to put yourself out there. There's a lot of analysis paralysis. And, we wonder now, where do we go from here, right? Why should we even care about coming up with ideas? How do we even know if we're coming up with good ones? We all have limited time, resources, capital potentially. We need to make sure that we're coming up with great ideas. And how do we bring them to life? That's the most important part. Is the effort even worth it? Well, I want to actually share there's a lot of impact to be made, right, at various levels with your ideas. When you're looking at your organization and the potential impact, there's this incredible impact to culture of innovation and creativity. There's an impact of bringing your ideas to life for your team as well. You start to develop strong relationships with your teams and your managers as you ideate, iterate, and innovate together. And lastly, for your personal and professional growth, you feel a greater sense of satisfaction, of accomplishment, of growth from building something out of nothing and actually executing on an idea. And in fact, we all should be building, right? Not just for our team or for our organization, but actually for ourselves as well. So I want to make sure this time is valuable for you all and has lasting impact. If there's one lesson or one takeaway that you gather from this session, it really is that you have the power to build and ideate. And most importantly, you have the power to impact. And I really want this session to be that sign for you all to kind of step into the zone that feels a little bit uncomfortable. Having a tangible impact, where your team and your organization goes from here on is an incredible feeling. And on top of that, you have this ability to set a precedent, right, for the culture in your organization and really make this incredible mark on the growth. And we'll talk through some of the barriers that some of you all are mentioning here. I'll make sure to touch upon them as well. I'm seeing maybe pushback from people who aren't interested in evolution. Very true. But again, the steps that we take as individuals can start to have the domino effects on that eventual culture as well. So that's exactly why I'm here today, right? To help guide you all through the simple steps that you can take basically today and really show that there's no better community than this, time or place to bring your ideas to life. Now, first of all, why would I even be qualified to walk you all through this, right? Who even am I? Well, as I mentioned, and as I started off, I really did let fear hold me back, which is why I have 54 ideas on my notes app just sitting there that I've never executed upon, right? But 3 years ago, I made a very intentional decision to change that. I realized that I have a lot to learn and very little to lose by taking a nebulous concept in my head and turning it into something tangible and real. And that's something I want to stress here. I had a lot to learn and very little to lose because not all ideas require a ton of capital or time. So remember, again, I had those 55 ideas on my list. I said I had 54 that I never acted upon. But there was one idea that I couldn't stop thinking about. That one idea started as a passion project on an Excel sheet when I was working at my full-time job. I was working nights and weekends, and I had a poorly written business plan. And that one idea that was a passion project a few years ago has turned into a company. And it's impacted over now 13,000 people in a very profound way. We've been able to gain support and funds from the National Science Foundation, Amazon, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and achieve that 95% satisfaction rating. And again, I'm really here to show you, again, there's no better time, place, or skill set that you possess today to innovate, generate, and elevate your ideas to accelerate your career and your organization. So let's start to uncover the roadmap to actually make that happen. In the next few slides, I'll walk through 5 easy steps, again, to innovate, generate, and elevate your ideas. Now, a lot of this has been derived and inspired by design thinking, especially, made popular by IDEO, if any of y'all have heard of them. Highly recommend as a resource, as you're going about this process. So some of you all may recognize this. If this is new to you all, then, it's a really great framework to really break down the ideation and execution process. And I've worked in the tech industry for some time, 7 years prior to starting my startup. So some of the best teams and tech companies really lean on steps like this. As simple as they look, they really lean on these steps to create the best products and experiences for their users and customers. And where it all begins with, interestingly enough, is actually not the idea. Step 1 actually begins with sparking your curiosity. And so a lot of people think when you want to build something or build a product, you're starting off with a problem or idea. But really, actually, what we want to do is start to take a step back. Because a lot of times when we're working in the day-to-day of our office and full-time jobs, it's really easy to be constrained to the work scope that we're looking at every single day. And we sometimes lose the curiosity that can spark really amazing ideas. And so we want to start not with the ideas, but actually questions. Questions are a very powerful tool to really spark a bunch of ideas that we may not have thought about otherwise. And we need to also remember to remove judgment in this entire process. So when we're thinking about building our curiosity and sparking our curiosity, we have to realize that we can't let judgment cloud what we're curious about. We all have this inner builder and this inner dreamer, and we all can be curious. And that's something I want to stress because it doesn't require a degree. It doesn't require any sort of skill set. We can just be curious, right? We all can do that. And I think that's a really exciting part, that it has very low barrier to entry. So with that, you're going to start to ask yourself a ton of questions. And most importantly, the type of questions you're going to start to ask yourself are why questions, right? The asking why can lead to incredible downstream effects. Why does this take so long? Why did it take me 20 hours to compile this report? Why are we even doing this process in such a manual way? Why hasn't this been done before, right? You're really challenging your assumptions more than anything. And that's a big part of curiosity and ideation, is that you need to challenge what you already believe or know today and how things are done today, because that's where really great ideas start to generate from. Even framing problems as questions can lead to delightfully unexpected directions. So again, I'm really not trying to encourage, let's write down a laundry list of all the problems that we have today. We're really just taking that step back as if we were coming into a situation or an organization new and asking why, right? And there's one big superpower. There's a few superpowers I'm going to talk about, but here's one superpower that is important when we're talking about sparking curiosity, and that's empathy. Empathy is going to be one of the biggest assets that you have when you're really starting the ideation process and sparking that curiosity. We may not have a direct understanding or experience of every single area we're looking to impact, right? That's just not possible. But empathy allows us to take action to explore the things that we don't know firsthand today, and really drawing inspiration from what other people need, right? Because if we look at the ideas maybe we want to execute on, we're looking to maybe build for our team as our end users. Maybe you're looking to build an application for your customers. Maybe you're looking to build a report for your manager. Either way, we've got to empathize for who we're building with at the end of the day, or building for at the end of the day. And so you can build this empathy in a few very easy, tangible ways that, again, don't cost a lot of time or capital, which are surveys, pretty simple to spin one up, observations, or interviews. I personally love observation and interviews. That's my favorite way to build empathy. And in fact, when I first set out to build Dreami, my mission was to understand my end customers' mindset and workflow so much that I can predict the problems they're going to tell me when I get on a call with them. So I actually went and did some of the manual work that they would do on a day-to-day basis to truly put myself in their shoes and really empathize with the pain, with the workload, with the bandwidth constraints that they face. And as a founder, as a builder, and even as someone who gets on calls and sells my product, I'm able to empathize with my customers and end users so much. And so that has been, an incredible superpower to also speeding up the ideation process and building process as well. And it allowed me to ask myself more targeted questions as well. The more empathy that I built for the people I was building for, I was able to ask better questions, actually, about why things were done the way they were. Another way to draw some inspiration and continue to spark your curiosity, maybe there's an analogous situation or product that can help aid in sparking that inspiration and curiosity. So for example, one product I was using at the time is something called Modern Health. And this was a mental health platform that connected individuals to coaches. And I loved the emotion that I felt when I was on the product. I felt at ease, I felt comfortable, and I felt excited. And I remember wanting to capture that emotion and inject that into whatever product I was going to build. And so I really thought through, okay, how are they sparking that emotion for their users? And it allowed me again to ask the right questions and spark that curiosity as to how I could provide the same for the product I was looking to build. So we just talked about the first step, which is sparking curiosity. Let's start to get into the next step, right? Which is now unlocking ideation. I really, really love this step. And it's so simple as well. You're going to want to generate a large number of ideas in a short amount of time, right? And this is, again, where we're going to actually switch what we know. We're going to go actually for quantity, not quality. And it's hard to wrap our minds around that sometimes, right? Because again, we've been so ingrained to believe that quality is better than quantity. But again, when you're just simply looking to get a list of a bunch of ideas, really without any constraints, you really do want to allow your mind to think about the volume and just write whatever comes to mind. So I have some best practices to keep in mind when you're thinking out the ideation process. We really want to remove judgment here. And I've mentioned that earlier. I'm going to keep mentioning it because it is so important that we really do allow ourselves to embrace this process without that judgment. You may be mindful of it, in past situations where you had to maybe provide an idea in a team meeting and you were worried about speaking up for fear of judgment. In this case, we don't want any judgment here at all. And this is where you really don't want to constrain yourself either. Don't think about any of the constraints that exist today. Don't think about, the problems that may prevent this idea from happening. You actually do want to allow those to simply vanish in the moment we're near ideating, because again, you never know what may come up when you do allow yourself to forget about the constraints that exist today. Using what if is a really powerful way to build on ideas. So ideally, you're doing this not in a silo. It does help to have a few team members ideating when you are thinking out building something. Even if you're doing this on your own, though, asking what if can help to build on ideas. And that's actually something that's highly encouraged, that you write down an idea and you want to keep building on it and building on it and building on it. It's kind of similar to the yes and concept, right? Where we don't diminish anybody's ideas or what they're bringing to the table. We're adding on to it. And it has been very powerful for me to ask what if to continue to building upon ideas. Ideally, there's a rule of thumb that IDEO has set. 100 ideas an hour. So over 10 years, I'm saying I've come up with 55 ideas. If I allowed myself to sit in a room for 1 hour, I better be coming up with about 100. That's really, again, to promote, allowing yourselves to just wander freely and ideate freely without those constraints. And again, one best practice is also encouraging divergent thinking. So not really trying to converge on one topic or one aspect, but actually allowing yourself and your team to diverge into many, many different realms and ideas as well. So having a team when you're ideating is definitely a best practice as well. And when you're done, your whiteboard or your Miro board or whatever may look a little bit like this, right? Ton of post-it notes or notes everywhere or ideas written out. In the tech world, they are a very big fan of just simply doing it old school, getting a whiteboard. Everybody has their different colored post-it notes and sticking it up on the board so that you get a visual representation of the array of ideas that have been generated when you're working together as well. Now, once you have all your ideas on the board or listed out, this is when then you can start to converge on some of the best ideas. So again, allow yourself to ideate freely, but then you can start to go in and whittle it down and converge on some of the most applicable ideas or the best ideas as well. You can allow constraints to start to come in as well. After all the ideas have been written out. That's a good way and a good measure and filter to start to refine, prioritize, and decide the ideas to actually work on. And one way to start to also refine your ideas is you can start to ask how questions. If we were to do this, how may this be done? Or how can we spark delight for our users using this idea? And you can start to whittle your ideas down. So how questions start to come in after you've generated everything. So we've gone through now sparking curiosity, untapping ideation. The next part is now getting to building, right? And I want to frame the building and the building process actually as experimentation. One that reduces maybe a lot of the stress and the fear that we may feel going about this process, right? But now that you have an idea, we really just want to reduce the stakes and really go into this thinking that this is just one big experiment, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, we're really looking to learn more than anything. And if the experiment didn't go well, that's fine, because at the end of the day, this was framed as an experiment. So we have a few best practices here. A big concept in the tech world is building out a prototype or something called a minimum viable product of your idea. So a prototype is maybe a non-functioning version of your product, right? Let's say that you're looking to build, for example, a CRM for donors, for example. Maybe a prototype might be some designs in Figma, and it might be, clickable. It might be, you might be able to interact with it, but there's no code behind it necessarily, and it doesn't necessarily function, but it does give some indication of what it could look like, and it does allow potential users to give feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would like to see. A minimum viable product is it's a level beyond a prototype, where essentially you're building out the most minimum feature set and core feature set to make this product function. And so when I went to build out Dreami, my prototype initially was actually an Excel sheet. I didn't call it a prototype at the time because all this was very accidental, but it was an Excel sheet, and it was showing, mentors and mentees and matching them up and introducing people, and that was pretty much it. But it really wasn't a functioning product necessarily. When I started getting interest and started getting feedback on it, then I went and built out an MVP. And so this was a very buggy first version, not a beautiful design or anything like that, but it was a very buggy first version where people could create an account, fill out a matching quiz, and get matched. And it allowed me to, again, reduce the cost and time, because I heard that were some barriers that people were mentioning earlier on. I reduced the cost and time to basically get something out the door, because at the end of the day, what I really am looking to get is feedback. So before you even get feedback, you're going to want to set success criteria ahead of time, right? That's just for any good experiment, to really understand what are you even experimenting for and measuring for. Be really, really diligent about measuring outcomes. Whether your outcome is understanding, user engagement, or whether it's some sort of satisfaction metric, or whether it's some reduction of time to do a process, be really, really diligent about understanding what does success look like at the end of the day, and actually measuring it diligently throughout this building process and experimentation process. And then lastly, collect as much feedback as possible. I was very, very intentional about that. I wasn't just collecting feedback in the form of match satisfaction or number of mentors and mentees match. I was really trying to look actually another level further. I was trying to actually monitor people's reactions to certain features. For example, if I was on a call with them live, I was really trying to understand, were they delighted by the product or were they frustrated? And at the end of the day, I was also really trying to understand, am I building something that's actually needed, or is this kind of a nice to have as well? And what would allow me to understand that was the level of repeat visitors, right? Would people keep coming back to the platform, to the MVP, and using it? And if they weren't, then that's a big sign to me that I need to change something here and I need to iterate. So that actually leads us to what the cycle of experimentation and ideation and building really is, right? You're going to be launching, you're going to get feedback, and you're going to iterate. And it's again and again and again. And it's really powerful to look at this as a cycle, because it removes a lot of, I think, the fear behind it and a lot of maybe the judgment we have of ourselves of putting something out there. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're applying a really strong feedback loop and you're very diligent about iterating upon the feedback, you're creating something better and better and better with each iteration. That's most of the time guaranteed, right? If you're being very diligent about that feedback and really iterating. And so there's a few ways to get feedback here. I mentioned a few as I was giving some anecdotal examples, but one is in-market observations. What does that actually mean, right? Let's say you created that, simple design, of your CRM for donors. You're going to get on a call with some end users, right? Whether it's a few, executive directors or anyone else, and you're going to actually observe, how are they using the prototype? How are they clicking through it? What are their reactions? Are they struggling to, click on the right things? Are they confused? Are they really excited by it? Are they asking, how much does this cost? Whatever it may be, right? But you do want to get some of that in-market observations. Another one is doing a little bit more of a rigorous, feedback study. So, something that we did when we were going to build something for K through 12 and expand our offerings is that we basically built an MVP, and it was sent anonymously to students, to high school students. And they actually went through and, used parts of our features and filled out a form of their, ratings of the usability and their feedback. Another way you can do that is pilots. So this is when you're a little bit further along, and this is for a more extensive product, and this is what can take a little bit more time. But piloting whatever you build out with your end customer or your end user for 3 to 6 months or so, or even maybe a shorter period of time, depending on what you're building, can be really powerful, because if there's a decision to renew or expand the pilot, something's being done well. So a lot of different ways to get that feedback. I think if for those who have mentioned that they're limited on time and maybe financial resources internally, in-market observations and some really quick feedback surveys can be very powerful to get that feedback quickly, and with the low investment as well. So now that we've covered excelling at experimentation, we're going to get into a very important aspect of this all. So IDEO doesn't really cover this, but it is something that's very powerful when you're going about any sort of ideation and building process. And it's just that we can't forget about support, right? We really need to think about our personal board of directors. What does that actually mean? Well, essentially, if you think about the companies maybe you all work at, or maybe companies that you admire, they generally all have something called a board of directors, right? And the way I like to frame it is that an organization or a company has goals for the future. And a lot of the times they're ambitious goals, they're exciting goals, they're lofty goals. And the company's leadership realizes that, we do need experts that are guiding us along the way to make sure that they can help fill in the gaps that we have to help us reach those goals. And I always say, to even the mentors and mentees on our platform, and when I'm conducting trainings, and even for anyone looking to build, why don't we, as individuals, have our own personal board of directors? We all have goals that we're setting for ourselves. And especially if you're looking to build, a project out, having that board of directors of individuals from various backgrounds can be incredible. They help you make sound decisions. They give you advice and feedback, really be that sounding board that we all need, challenge your assumptions, broaden your professional network, which is so critical at any point of our careers, and brainstorm and gut check ideas as well. So this is a very general lineup, so to speak, of who can be on your board of directors. But generally, the way I like to think of it is that you're going to want a champion for sure. This is generally someone who helps to make those decisions, remove blockers, prioritizes the project potentially. You're going to want a mentor who supports you with encouragement and past knowledge. An end user, ideally, on your board of directors would be very valuable. It's something I wish I actually considered when I first built out my startup. But this is someone who represents who you're building for, right? And they're going to provide that feedback. And maybe they're going to be a super user at the end of the day, but they're really an advocate for what you're building, but they're going to also provide that necessary, honest feedback that you need to hear as you're going through this process. And then lastly, a peer, or maybe a few peers, really a partner to ideate, build, and iterate. Some of the best ideas really do happen in a room, with another person that you're working with, and takes you in a direction that you never thought you would even go. So having someone who can, serve as that peer is incredibly valuable as well. Either way, this all goes to say that, I'm a huge fan of ensuring that we surround ourselves with that social capital and that support. And this also goes to say of what, building and ideating can do for your career. When you start to really expand, that support system, people are invested and they do want to help. And I know in some organizations, maybe change is not always encouraged and innovation is not necessarily encouraged, but I can guarantee there's at least one person within an organization who will provide some sort of support. So I encourage you all to definitely think through that and look for that as well. And then lastly, we're getting to step 5 here, which is celebrate discoveries, right? And note that I didn't mention celebrating wins. We're actually shifting our mindset to celebrate discoveries. So going through this process of ideating and building will not necessarily mean that there will always be a win, right? It won't necessarily guarantee that everything will be a huge success. But what you are guaranteed to do is make incredible discoveries. And this is a big mindset shift. And it's not something always mentioned in corporate environments, but after building a startup, it's something I definitely encourage my team to really embrace, which is really leaning into discovery over winning. And discoveries are exciting aspects of the process. It really sets the bar for, your team actually as well. And there are incredible best practices actually about celebrating discoveries, which is number one, you want to actually document these and share these out, right? Because we did all this amazing work. We've been ideating, we've been experimenting, we got feedback, we're iterating. Let's make sure we share all the knowledge we've gathered. And then most importantly, and something I've learned from Chevron actually, back in the day, is gathering our lessons learned. So there are always lessons to be learned from any endeavor we take on. And the most important part about lessons is that we're actually documenting it and we're actually reading it out to other people as well. So they're aware of the lessons and can maybe, avoid any mistakes or build upon the lessons in the future. You're going to want to track the impact created. I think it's important to realize that with any endeavor, when you're, building any idea, there is impact that you have created. And I don't think we really realize this enough and give ourselves that credit. But again, there is a lot to be gathered there on the impact, not only for yourself, but for your team and your organization. And then my favorite part about discoveries is that they're a launch pad to build new ideas. right? So let's say that you built that CRM for donors and maybe you didn't get the best feedback or the best engagement, and it didn't really exactly hit the nail on the head of, you know, what your end users are looking for. But in the feedback sessions, what you were hearing is that, you know, your end users are actually really looking for maybe a way to track their grants. And maybe that's something that would be more impactful for them. And now you have a new idea to launch upon and you know, work through as well. And so one big superpower for this phase is storytelling. Because what we really want to do is get very good about communicating our entire process, right? And what good is all this work for if we don't share it out? So I really encourage you all to embrace storytelling as a skill when you're going about this process. Because, for example, I encourage my team, let's say that they set out to build a new feature. No matter what the end result was, I want them to still tell the story of the person that they were looking to build for, the ideas that they generated, how they got to the main idea that they ended up working on, and what came out of that. Because there is an incredible story to tell. And that also catches attention, again, of additional individuals within your organization as well. Lastly, two words that we can't ignore, two F words we can't ignore specifically: fear and failure. We really, really cannot ignore these two undeniable feelings and outcomes. This will 100% play a role in your journey. And I could spend another 45 minutes just talking out the role of fear and failure and, you know, how that very intimate and tangled role they play in ideation and building. But I just mainly want to acknowledge that you absolutely will feel fear and you may fail. The highest possibility is actually you will fail. But what we need to really understand is that's part of the process, right? The most inspiring builders actually look at fear and failure in the face and charge on. And we have to understand that these are the stepping stones to learning, to ideating, to growing, and even accelerating as an individual. It's something that I've really embraced since building my own company. I've realized this journey does not come without both of those aspects. And I've embraced them almost like two trusty friends on my pathway as I look to try to make change as much as I can. And I love what Austin's saying for sure. You need failure to learn and succeed. Hardest lesson to learn as a perfectionist. That was me as well. What you'll learn is that when you put something out there in the world, we can't control everything. It's a hard lesson to learn for anyone who does identify as a perfectionist, right? But there is a lot out of our control. But the most beautiful part is that if you embrace both of these aspects in your journey, you know, number one, you're building incredible resilience, but two, you're really being able to push, you know, on a journey that will lead to something really amazing no matter what. So I'm going to end with a challenge. I truly, you know, want to support you all in this incredible step in your professional journey. And I, you know, really want to hear from you all. I actually challenge everyone this month, right, to give maybe the first 2 steps a try. If you can get through all 5 steps, amazing. But, you know, we're just at the beginning of June here. I think it's an incredible opportunity to, you know, lean in, right? Lean into these 5 steps and really see what comes out of it. And I'd personally love to hear from you all as well. What this all comes down to is really unlocking an incredible journey. It's that ability to be curious, allow yourself to ideate without the boundaries of the world, narrowing in on that feasible, viable idea, and just seeing how far it goes as an experiment. And what you're really doing is leaving an incredible mark, right, on your organization, on your team, on your career, and really in your self-belief and your capabilities. So I encourage you all to explore the possibilities and embrace the power of dreaming. Thank you so much. Happy to also take any questions. We've got a few minutes left, so if there's any questions, happy to take it, but thank you all so much. Thank you all. I appreciate this.
Thank you so much Let me change the view so we can see both of us. Thank you so much. I've been listening to this with rapt attention and have seen a lot of takeaways for myself too, and realized that this is something we do at Blackbaud every day. And even the event that we're sitting in today was expanded as a pilot project. We have the theory that, you know, this low code thing is kind of interesting and we really like it, and maybe people will give it a try if we expand the format of this conference. And 3-4 years later, here we sit. So are you seeing the questions that are the one that's pushed up on stage?
Yes, I am. Okay, Jackie is asking, I'd love any resources you may have for learning to better communicate your ideas, particularly technical ones, to people who do have the same context, or I think don't have the same context or technical knowledge as you do. Yeah, very, very good question. I'd say that I really do lean on IDEO. So IDEO. If you simply type in, I think, IDEO storytelling, they're one of the biggest proponents of that. And again, the tech industry has really, really grasped a lot of their concepts and their tips. And they have incredible blog posts, actually, of the art of storytelling, storytelling for influence, and also, you know, when you're technical and you're communicating to a non-technical crowd. So I think that's a good first place to start. The second one, I think, is practice, honestly. You can read up a lot about storytelling, but really what I've learned is that when I just get up there and find any opportunity I can to tell some sort of story, even if it's simply your weekly team meeting and you're sharing out your updates and you want to just take like 2 minutes to tell a story of a new discovery that you've had, really try to identify the micro chances that you get to practice it. Because I think there's nothing more powerful than practice. And then what a lot of my technical friends have been doing who work in the tech industry is that they leverage Toastmasters quite a bit, because yeah, it is a challenge if you're technical and you're really trying to communicate these complicated topics, but you're talking to maybe management and they're not technical. And Toastmasters has been a great way for them to learn how to be more concise, learn how to simplify their language, and really also learn to pay attention to the listener and understand those cues. Are they engaged? Am I losing them? Let me course correct in the moment. So hopefully those resources help. Oh, I think you're on mute, Kathryn.
I'm sorry. It's inevitable. Somebody will be on mute. In the 2 minutes you have left, Cameron is asking a question about how you set a budget for building a prototype once you get an idea going. How would you estimate the cost of building the real thing?
Oh, such a good question. Well, you know, I'm going to say maybe it's not going to be the most favorite answer, but we are in this amazing, amazing environment where you can pretty much build a prototype for free now. I would say the cost of development should be pretty low, very honestly. I can't speak to an exact number, right? Because that depends on your organization. It depends on your idea, and it depends what you're looking to eventually build, who to build for. But for something like a prototype, where we have the wealth of low code to no code, tools available to us, I'd say you should aim to build it for free. So that's a challenge mainly to you to aim for. But I'm always happy to chat more about, hearing more about what you're looking to put out there.
Fabulous. I think that is everything. I'm going to push out the survey so folks can give us feedback. So launch the survey. I appreciate immensely you taking the time to come speak with our group. It has been a phenomenal session for ideation and just getting those creative juices flowing. I hope you don't mind that I shared your slides in the through this system, so that if folks want a reminder of some of the inspiring phrases and thoughts that you put out there, that they can come back to that and revisit your words. So thank you so much, Ashima.
Thank you so much, everyone. And always happy to connect with anyone who's thinking out an idea. So maybe I'll share my contact information in the chat as well. But thank you all so much. Very much appreciate it.